Our next talk is called Moral Ambiguity in SOMA. It's given to us by Roger Matthews. Roger is a game designer with a background in filmmaking and video editing. He is currently getting his MFA in game design at Becker College with a focus on narrative design and level design. And I will now turn it over to him. Take it away, Roger.
So in this talk, I'm going to talk about the game SOMA. And just to be upfront, if you haven't played this game, this is full of spoilers, so just getting that out of the way right now. So first off, the game starts with a quote from Philip Dick, that reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. And the game is filled with a bunch of references to literature, including philosophical thought experiments and Philip Dick. And it's all about encouraging the player to question something about the world or themselves. And it does so by providing morally ambiguous choices throughout the game. And what I mean by morally ambiguous is a choice that there is no correct right or wrong answer necessarily. You're provided reasons for both choices to potentially be correct. And someone does so through gameplay decisions that you need to make. Now, it seems like in this quote that Philip Dick is providing an answer on what is the correct perception of reality, but if you look at other quotes from Philip Dick, it's pretty clear that he was very interested in questioning reality, primarily, and raising questions. In this quote, he said, "I wrote over 30 novels and over 100 stories, and I still could not figure out what was real." And this was in 1978, 6 years after the quote in 1972 that SOMA references. So clearly, he spent a lot of time thinking about what reality is, raising questions. And so SOMA is very much following in that idea by asking you to ask yourself what is real, and by providing a framework that's more ambiguous in terms of what is the correct thing to do or what's not. And I want to contrast this with some other games that might not be quite as ambiguous in that category. For other games might have moral decisions to make, such as BioShock, where you need to decide whether to harvest the little sisters or to save them. But still, if you're harvesting a little sister, then you're going closer towards the bad ending. And if you save a little sister, you go closer towards the good ending. So you're still existing within this binary good-bad morality system. It's just a matter of which end of the spectrum you're choosing to be on. And in contrast, in SOMA, there is no punishment or reward for your behavior in that way. Whether you choose to make a moral decision, a life and death decision, you don't really necessarily see the kind of impact you would expect in certain other games. And instead, I think the intent is for you to walk away from the game and still have that question in your head afterwards about whether what you made was the right decision. And at least for me playing it, that was something that I came away with, that I had definitely some questions still in my head about what was the right decision, if I had made the right decision in certain situations. So for those who don't know, SOMA is a game that is technically within the survival horror genre, except your character is dead pretty much within the first hour of the game. Because in most of the game, you're in the future playing an android with the uploaded consciousness of your human self, which is a lot to take in. But basically, the idea is that what you see and experience feels real, but you're not human. And the game kind of grapples with that idea of what human is. The entirety of the human race is wiped out at this point in the game, very early on. So then the question is, all right, everyone's dead. Now what? Now what do we do? It's a big question. And throughout the game, you go through these moments of being isolated and encountering these other beings that are in these in-between states between human and not human. And here you meet an android that thinks it's a human and asks for help, except there's no one to get help, and it thinks that it's a human with, it just needs to be fixed up a little bit, needs a doctor. You meet a human that it used to be a human, but now it's this creature that's kept alive by this WOW, this W-A-U, not W-O-W, this giant collective AI is keeping things alive by transforming them. So this used to be a human, but now it's in an in-between state of human and not human. And it becomes increasingly grotesque. And throughout the game, you're given life or death decisions to make, essentially. So sometimes you might need to progress by harming one of these in-between state creatures, and you need to decide if is that okay? Are they alive? And your decision, your moral decision, is based on whether it's okay in some way to kill something or not. Or if you do think that there was something wrong with doing that, you might have to in certain situations. In order to survive yourself, you might need to pull the plug on something else or to destroy something else. And then you need to decide sometimes which of the two, there's two options. You might need to decide which of the two to exterminate. So that's a lot to summarize, and it's a lot of convoluted stuff potentially to explain in 2 seconds. But I'll focus on one example here of towards the end of the game, where after dealing with these in-between state creatures, you come across an actual human. Now, so far in the game, you've thought that there were no humans left, and this was the last one here. And she didn't know she was the last human, so she's not happy about this either. And it's a kind of sad moment. And she asks you to pull the plug on her because this is the future, and this machine will keep her alive indefinitely. And there's nothing left on Earth, and your character is on his way to his own journey, which doesn't include her. So you're left with this decision. Do you agree and pull the plug on her, or do you let her sit in that chair potentially indefinitely alone? And there's really no good answer here. And I think that's what the game gets really interesting, is because you don't want to pull the plug. You don't want to leave her there, but you're forced to make one of those two decisions. And it makes at least me think about the ideas of whether it's okay to pull a plug on a person, and what context is that okay? And also then at what point are we living life? At what point are we human? At what point is there, like it can keep on going, but it raises questions for me when I'm playing it. And it's not about, did I make the right decision? Which ending can I get? What gameplay mechanics? Like when you are at this point in the game, you don't have any incentive to make either option. You're not punished for either option. So it's really just to leave you thinking. And online, people have then since followed that kind of lead the game is asking you to think about. And there are discussions about people defend the supposedly villainous wow that is keeping everything alive in the game. Is it a villain? Is it not a villain? Is it wrong to pull the plug, or is it not on a character? And I think that this kind of discussion is kind of different from certain other games, and that I think that for me at least, some of the most interesting parts are not necessarily playing the game, but then what I'm thinking about afterwards. So, in closing, from Philip Dick, I think that it's interesting to think about why Philip Dick was so interested in questioning reality, since the game starts with a quote from him, that he questioned reality in this way because he believes that there are so many realities that are being potentially bombarding us in society, including pseudo-realities that can be manufactured by very sophisticated people using very sophisticated electronic mechanisms. And this idea that it's very easy to create a reality that seems real and correct, but there is potentially room for doubt and skepticism. And I think it's very important to think for ourselves, is what I'd say finally. And I think that I'll end on a research paper that kind of reinforces these concepts from Melanie C. Green. She wrote a paper called Transportation into a Narrative World, where it kind of looks at how when you take stories and you're actually transported into a story instead of reading it, you actually are more likely to change your attitude or beliefs based on the fact that you are more immersed in it. For example, if I read a philosophical thought experiment in a book, I might think about it, but that wouldn't be the same thing as, on some level, being immersed in the story and believing I'm there through sound design, through like immersive, headphones, sound design, and a lot of visuals, and having a story that's really keeping me invested emotionally in the characters. And then this paper talks about how your decisions during this process might actually change. So I think that's what makes SOMA interesting in particular, is that while it's taking these existing ideas from thought experiments and Philip Dick, it's putting them in this interactive paradigm where you are making the decisions yourself and thinking for yourself in real time. And while not necessarily getting good, bad morality decisions, you're getting enough emotional investment in the story that I think that there's something interesting there. So that's it, and thank you very much.